quite sure that.
Yes, this is the forward.
Forward?
This is the view,
Okay,
this is backward.
Okay, all right, good. Thank you, Patrick, for the very kind words. And I think, like I would tell my student that I like things to be informal, so that at any point in time you want to jump in, by all means, okay? And I'd like to just share about my work with you. Now, I guess as Patrick mentioned earlier, that I think the mobility, giving our individual mobility, has increased today. And so internationalization is part of the globalization process. And I think for all of us as educators, we all envisage our graduate to be competitive in the international world. And I think this is therefore it's very important. So what I wanted to share with you today is about what happened in nursing. Now, within nursing, I don't know about your particular discipline or your profession, whether this is something that required in your syllabus to have, well, international or round, I guess, all-round development. I think this is probably part of the university strategy. But in nursing as a profession, it's already required us to be culturally competent. So we have a subject called transcultural nursing. And so this is something that we need to develop in terms of the cultural competence in nursing. So my first pilot, actually I've done 2 projects, and one is still ongoing and actually going to be the third part of it, a spin-off from the second one. With the first project, it's really very serendipitous. I was just talking to a colleague from Finland, University of Novia, and we both are teaching a similar subject. I was teaching caring concept, and that's a big component on understanding the cultural competence. How do we develop that within nursing? And she's teaching elective subject on intercultural nursing. So we thought, apart from giving students the theories and we might even show them video, why don't we make the internationalization or developing the cultural competence more lively or more vivid by having, they talk to each other, across with students. And it would be hard for, kind of exchange when you thought about using the technology to facilitate that. So one of the things that I've done with Finland, when we're looking at our similar topic area, how are we going to design our exchange in terms of understanding better about what internationalization means or developing cultural competence. So we decided to look at our own 2 different syllabus, the commonality, and we put the materials online. So the first thing that the first hurdle that we found was we have to have a compatible platform for the students, go online to access the information. And one of the things that we found is actually quite cumbersome. We use Blackboard, they're using something else. But this Finland colleague is very accommodating and try to make it happen. So what happened is we end up using Moodle. Some of you might be familiar with it. Modular-oriented, objective, dynamic environment. I remember that. Okay, so the whole idea is we're using the same platform. So she was able to put all our learning materials online for the student to access. And student to access that, they will be registered as a university students at Finland. So we actually work out that part. So the first thing for this particular design, if you have online materials, the compatibility will have to work out in terms of the platform. And then the other thing is with this particular model, we have the student accessing the information, and then we gave them emails of each other. We divide them into groups so that 10 on each end. So 10 students from Finland, 10 students from Hong Kong. And we recruit them within our own subject. One of the things that I've learned too is anything added on is not good for the students. So it has to be integrated within your own curriculum. And so within my subject, again, we open it up. Whoever wanted to do it, come and volunteer, and definitely there's no penalty of anything if you decided not to. So both my colleagues and I were just didn't think that we have to do this. If we got enough students, we'll do it. If not, then we won't. So, but fortunate enough, we did get, some very brave soul because they really didn't know what they're getting into. All I promised them is the assessment will exactly be the same, like in terms of the I guess the underpinning themes and all that. So the assessment was then embedded in their final project. So you have to envision this. So what happened is they will have online materials, both of them will access, and after that, we deliberately trying to structure it more loosely so that they will have more autonomy, they will have less structure, so they will actually contact each other. But one of the things that we say, that's a common assessment. It's an interdependent project. They have to rely on each other to write a final paper, which they will also be sharing at the final focus group discussion. And so all along, apart from the online materials and also the final, the focus group that they will share their work together as a whole group, in between time, we just left it for them to interact with each other on their own time, but support is very important. So we gave tutorial, to those to all the people, like within our class, as well as this 10 students, to give them support as to so what happened, with your exchange with the others internationally, and so basically give them support and guidance. So the paper is to look at understanding each other's values and meanings and beliefs about nursing, about caring, about the healthcare system. So they will have to work together to write up a joint paper and present it at the focus group at the end. So is that very clear in terms of what the structure is about for this model? So structure, less structure, so we aim for less structure. At the time, I really want to inject this element of uncertainty, because what I found is students in Hong Kong live with too many scripts, and so that there's a lot of certainty. So this uncertainty kind of getting them crazy, but then at the same time, we say we have tutorial support, so that was fine. Now, one other thing that I've learned also too with the time zone differences. So students are writing to each other, and I don't know, what I've also learned is Hong Kong students, especially those very keen ones, they want to make sure that we've got the schedule, when to meet, what to do, because we have this final paper that we need to submit. Students at the Europe end, they're a little more relaxed. And so they would say that, well, don't have to worry about it, only do it when it comes to the time. And then we could develop that, we could do that. So students be writing them. Sometimes, at like during their own hours, they forgot that over the other side they have a different time zone. Finland is about 6 hours, I believe, 7 hours ahead of us. So if you forgot to time yourself, Hong Kong students, as soon as they write, they expect, not necessarily instant feedback, but at least, 3 or 4 hours, but they still don't see anything, so they panic. So what happened? So again, the tutorial was very helpful, to support them, as to remind them there's a time zone difference. Now, we were using Skype at the end, for the focus group, and because it's free, and then you hear me saying later about our second project, Skype had a much more heavier role in my second design than this first one, because the first one we were just using it for the final, and then in between is whatever they can do. Some of the students in Hong Kong, they were trying to look for their partners overseas, because after they wrote the email to them, there's no response. So they look at Facebook, do whatever, try to look them up. So the social media was very helpful. Now, then the second project. This is a much bigger project, and so trying to extend what I've learned and to do it with the second one. This second one is just like what Patrick said earlier. This is a collaborative one. The other one is basically funded by ourselves, which is our own time and our own commitment and all that. But this one is actually with Malmo University. We have a collaborative agreement, and I think university are doing a lot of this joint university thing. And so we apply money at this end, and the colleagues that is collaborate with us, they will apply money on the other end. So then together we come up with the same project. And with this project, we have a few more colleagues that is with me. So I just wanted to include them. For this particular project, apart from the undergraduate program, it also involved the postgraduate program, but because it's undergraduate here, I think we basically emphasize it. So I'm not going to share too much on the postgraduate program, but if you are interested, I can actually mention it later. So again, I don't know why 20. I mean, it's always seems to be the magic number, but again, 10 students on our end and 10 more on the other side. Now, with this particular project, the colleagues from the Malmo University, this is their first time they're doing it, and I think they just want to make sure that it doesn't get to be too unwieldy, so that 10 students is what they think that will be good. This time we actually got a lot more students wanted to do it, especially from the Hong Kong side. So we have to kind of pick and choose and say, well, next time, And so we had 10 students from each end. So this time the design is different. We go with more structure rather than less structure now. And so instead of finding a similar subject at both ends, we actually have looked at nursing care of a patient journey. So we're looking at nursing therapeutic, meaning that we have a patient case. We divide the case scenario into 3 segments from the time the patient got admitted to the hospital, during hospitalization, and discharge. So we were hoping to use a case study to stimulate, the discussion between the two, the local student as well as the overseas students, to see what will be the similarity and differences in their practice. I think nursing for us or whatever professional practice is for you. So then we have the 3 seminars based on case scenario. Now, that's what we have identified. The use of Skype is actually free. I think very important, it's free. You don't have to pay user fee or whatever. Free. Accessibility is fairly high. And the one thing that we found is very useful is the visual aspect rather than just the text. With my earlier one with Finland, the textual, if just relying on the text, sometimes also make a difference too. The difficulty is depends on your writing etiquette. Students may misunderstood each other because sometimes the writing is so big. Then the Hong Kong student will be looking at, this writing is so big. Is the person is yelling at me or what? So that kind of thing that sometimes the misunderstanding can occur. So visual part is very, very helpful with this particular design. So with this particular design, we have this 3 seminars, and students from both ends will come in to discuss on the case. Facilitators, myself, and the other colleagues will be there, same with the other end, and we try not to say as much. And after the seminars, then from each seminars, we'll have a debriefing session. So after each seminars, there will be a debriefing sessions, and also a focus group at the end. Now, we decided that we don't necessarily want the student to be all together to debrief. So rather, we separate them, again, the domestic group and also the foreign group. So everybody debriefing on their own. The reason being is we thought that the student will be able to say more about what happened within the local group. They might be a little bit more hesitated to say more when the group is much bigger with the others. And so this is a focus group, and then so we also turn it into definitely more like a research. So this is also very important because university looking for KPI. This is one of the KPIs. So do make use of your projects, not just a teaching and learning project, but turn it into paper. So this is again what we've learned. Technology, as I mentioned earlier, we use Skype. It's free, accessible, visual, not just text. Now, problem with the voices at times, but very, very interestingly, the Finnish students actually were saying that because that is sometimes it's hard to hear, they pay a lot of attention to what the person is saying. So that actually became an enhancer rather than barrier. And they actually like that better than their face-to-face classroom, get together. So I thought that was really interesting. Now, then the other thing is the embedded assessment. Now, I think when I'm looking at the findings, what I found here is probably not as good as the first one, simply because the embedded assessment here is during the time they're doing the seminar, the discussion, and then they will write reflective paper on their own afterwards. So the joint session, the opportunity where they actually talk to each other and trying to understand each other is during the seminar discussion, whereby the other one, they really have to intentionally working with each other on a paper. So if you will try to do this, make sure that it's an interdependent assessment, that they will have to rely on each other to do work. But then obviously the opportunity is still provided during the discussion. But then I think more time and space is required for them to think about how they can work together closely. Now, The other thing I also find is interesting is because of the case scenario construction, we actually have pre-assigned questions for both ends to think about before they come to the seminar. Because it is highly structured, it's very much liked by, take a guess, Hong Kong students or Mamu students? Highly structured. Hong Kong students. Hong Kong students just love it. Tell me what questions so that we come prepared. And I also was very, very impressed. Students are very motivated with this pre-seminar preparation. I don't know how many of you have this problem. I mean, I've been teaching other courses. The motivation for them to come prepared before class, and so that you hope to discuss with them during class, sometimes very difficult. So for some reason, they are very, very motivated, and they were well prepared. So with each question, the pathophysiology is like research up to the T. So when they actually come to as a group, we actually have a question for them to start, more like an icebreaker thing. We ask the student to say that when I feel like a nurse, then you fill in the gap. So everybody will, introduce yourself, all 10, and then all the other 10 will say, like, I'm Angela, I feel like a nurse when, so if you're so everybody kind of just talks through, and so kind of get them into the mode of doing that case scenario. After that, then there was kind of silence. Also, silence seems to, in our second project, seems to occur quite a lot. I don't know, because there's a lot of seminars. With the first one, we didn't have the seminar. We don't know what happened in between, right? So some silence, and somebody cannot stand the silence anymore. So break the silence, Hong Kong student. First one say, okay, I'm so-and-so, and the first question that we have down on the paper is, and then so start off the first question. They also talked about a lot the pathophysiology part of it. What we found after the debriefing and the focus group, Hong Kong students also talked about they're very grade-oriented, so they wanted to impress because facilitator is there, and so they want to make sure that they have the pathophysiology knowledge right there. And a lot of close-ended questions, so didn't leave much space for the colleagues the students from the Finland to kind of access. And so that's also something that they were talking about. Hong Kong students very anxious, whereas the the Swedish student, they're more relaxed. And they're also more experiential in terms of using their own experience from the clinical to talk about it. But my students is basically much more textbook oriented. They use a little bit of experience in the clinical, but very much stay with the text. And so they also come to understand about the shaping of the different learning approaches that they have taken to this seminar. Language. One of the very interesting things that we found too is not so much, we didn't ask that with or didn't find that with the Finnish in particular, but with the Swedish students, they said there's a good place for them to practice the English. With the Hong Kong students, they felt more comfortable because they said English is a second language for either parties. So they feel more comfortable. As soon as they say something, they worry that somebody might not understand them. And so as soon as they hear what the other person is saying, validating, you understand what I'm saying. At the same time though, when you said something, I could actually fully understand that you're not a native speaker. So that also set up the confidence and also the level of comfort. Setting, despite of the comfort with the language, Hong Kong student also emphasizing on the fact that peer support is very important. Even though we have 10 students at the Chen, we actually break it up into, I think, into a small group, like 5 or 6 in one group as a mix. So we have different rooms and set up with a different Skype seminars. And there was one time, because of a technology failure, we have them back together. And so Hong Kong students could be sitting closer to each other because it's a much bigger group. They found that was actually helpful because when they don't understand exactly what the Swedish student was saying, they could consult each other before they ask the questions. And so they found that the peer support here, within that particular setting, even if you sit close to each other, we can actually clarify with each other, is this what the person is saying? And so before you actually conjure up your own questions to ask or ask for clarification. That was helpful. Now, the other thing is expected being digital natives. I mean, we all assume, I mean, I definitely have assumed that the younger generation, they're all very technological savvy, you know, they're using the social media, you know, and the personal equipment. But during this Skype session, some of them actually find that this is a very novel experience for them. They, even though it's digital, they find that it's not something that, you know, like when they look at Facebook, they talk in Facebook all the time. This is very different. So don't underestimate that. Do give them some kind of preparation beforehand, what to expect. That will be helpful. The number of sessions is looking at the length. The first session, I would say that is they're trying to get to know each other. Is not as engaging as one might want it to be. But the second and third session, a lot more clarification, a lot more questions, and they really learn from each other. Just as they feel very, very comfortable, we were saying that, okay, this will be our last session. So it's always like that. So again, it sounded like that 3 sessions, including the introduction, might not be enough. So I would recommend that if you were going to have any kind of sessions like this, whereby you're getting the student from both ends to actually discuss online, have more than 3. Okay. Now, I just wanted to quickly share that with you, and I think that now is basically open for you to ask any question that you might have or relating to your own project that you want to share with us here. Yes?
So you have to have connections to other universities around.
Yes, yes. Now, with the first one, like I said, it's because of friends. So I guess you can always utilize your network. For the second one, it's definitely funding from, you know, well, it happened to be within our faculty that we have some kind of collaborative agreement with different universities. So you should make use of that. Whichever collaboration that you have, find out, look it up. Like you might not even know anybody. Look up, you know, like your area within that university, see whether, you know, who you can connect, write to them, and see whether they'll be interested to do something like this. Yes?
Both of these projects happen to be in with Scandinavian universities. Right. Is that a coincidence, or do you feel that Scandinavia is very
no,
open market?
It is again coincidence, especially with the first one. Well, yes, it just seems to be aligned that route. I think also too because at the time, I think the Europe has a lot more, I guess, a lot more push, you know, for internationalization to be more on the, you know, on the forefront. So colleagues is also looking at partners. So I think this is also got going. So this is actually a good time. I think timing also is very important.
Yeah, we know this is in School of Design that
okay.
Both Eastern Europe and Scandinavia is pushing very hard.
Yes.
So we have a lot of new partners there.
Yes, exactly. So make use of that. Yeah. And then the other thing that I haven't really talked about, but I alluded to that earlier, is the time zone. Definitely you wanted to find places that, I know we have partners from US, and even this morning I have a Skype call. You're talking about 12 hours differences. So then you might want to take into account, you know, when you do something like this, you know, how much time lapse, you know, and so, you know, students are getting really nervous, you know, they're not answering me yet, you know, so where am I going to find them, you know, so the time zone is also a consideration when you're trying to find your partners.
Did the students have the opportunity to meet each other face-to-face before?
No, actually, we're going to have a project with Justina and the group, and we hope to have the online meeting, and eventually will become a face-to-face. So again, I think exchange has its merit, internationalization at home has its merit, but I think if we can combine it, I think it'll be even better. So we can actually see the results.
You talked about the students, like our students were prepared.
Right.
They learned the material, and the other students kind of weren't.
Well, I didn't say that. No, they came from
different learning style.
Yeah, exactly, different learning style. And I think one thing that I haven't really talked about here is what I also find is in Europe, you might also wanted to share. In Europe, the students' population is not as homogeneous as the one in Hong Kong here, especially with our undergraduate program. Students is probably, the age range is, 18 to probably 21, the most. I mean, even 17, you know, within, in Hong Kong. But over there, is really widespread. I think, when in Finland, the oldest one probably is about 40, when we have that project. And here, probably the oldest one's around 35, and so we have, but definitely no 16 or 17, and they probably start with 23, 23 years of age. Yeah.
Did you find from the Swedish colleagues, though, that the students, their study habits changed in response to our students' preparation?
Well, I think the change in the sense that they think that we could actually learn. They are very detailed. They're very detailed. That's how they describe. Hong Kong students are very detailed, but we are probably more critical. They like it. So I guess that they see the difference, and they also see the values of each other. And I think that's also one of the things that I thought I'm just going to share the logistic and the model with you. But in terms of some of the findings, particularly relate to the discipline-specific knowledge, they have actually gained tremendously in terms of looking at the value differences. And that's one particular. I'll share with you one particular thing that Hong Kong students never thought about when they're working in clinical. It's about this do not, the 4 risk sign. I don't know how many of you actually visit the Hong Kong hospital. Usually, when you are risk of 4, especially with the elderly, you have this label. And so when this is being shared, the Swedish student go like this and said, well, there's a privacy issue here. And so then immediately they go in to talk about, so how else would we be able to know if this clients or this patient need help, and we pay extra attention if we don't label it. And they then talk about the context, like in Hong Kong, the ratio, nurses, everybody, we got nursing colleagues here, 1 nurse to 10, 12 patients. Over Sweden, 1 to 6. And so maybe, even 1 to 6, they think that's a resource issue. So I think it's very different. So what students also learn is they need to contextualize, exactly what's happening. And so Hong Kong students start to think twice about that label because of the impact from the Swedish student. But at the same time, though, they in their own debriefing session, they also talk about maybe we need to have a balance. We cannot just adopt, and I think that's also very important. We need to contextualize it.
So how much that activity or assessment is worth in your course, and what other students who do not participate is doing?
Okay, which one? The one that with this one?
The second project.
The second one.
Yeah.
The second one, actually, I'm working closely with another colleague because I wasn't the subject lecturer, and so this is only 20%. The seminar and the reflective paper, there's only 20%. The rest of the students, they were supposed to be doing something similar, but then they will have to do online search. And so after the involved student talked to the other student, they definitely find that with face-to-face, not face-to-face, at least, they can see each other, versus you were just searching online about whatever country, that you wanted to look at in terms of the different cultural nursing practice. They find it much more harder because some of the thing is not online. Some of the thing is basically from the student that will tell you that from the experience. And so not everything you can just find online and feel meaningful.
Then would they complain, say, this is not fair,
No, actually, no.
I
I think if anything, this group in particular, like the one that involved the participating students, they found they've spent much more time than the others.
Yeah, so that's why they
won't because they're voluntary. No, they voluntary come, and this is not like this is like a different format. So I throw it out. So same assessment, and I throw it out, but there's different way of achieving this assessment. So you have a choice whether you want to do it or not. And so I would say that this group of students, a lot of curiosities. They wanted to kind of do this. They come with some uncertainty, but then when we give them a lot of structured assignment and also structured way of how the model is going to be designed, they feel very comfortable. And they learn very differently. One of the things that I did ask them, why are you guys so motivated, like in terms of the pre-classroom? It's interesting, they said, because they want to look good, like PolyU, and so these are all the factors that we didn't really think that they'll play a role, So it's not just about themselves. They want to look good in front of the others too. So representing School of Nursing.
Do you have any system to monitor the qualities of the interaction?
Facilitators were there, like with the seminar. Facilitators were there, and then remember we break it into 3 small groups. So right after the seminar, we have the briefing session right away. So talk about how did they find that and what they learned. So we also have structured questions. So I said to the group, now that we're going to have a spin-off, another one, we're actually including another university now. So that will be 3 universities together, and the design will also be slightly different. But one thing I said, not too much structure, I think we need to balance. The first time we have not much structure, and then this time is too structured, and so I think we need to balance in order to see, because actually when it's too structured, it doesn't allow them to have more dialogue, because all they're focusing is on that task. That's what we found in our first session.
Would you make it mandatory in the sense of these were volunteers so you can see the benefits, but how would you see the challenges if you say, okay, now it's a whole class, this is part of the course?
Right.
And so
this is actually what we hope to do, integrate in the curriculum. I guess what I would do is, like what I'm thinking of is maybe insert, like say with 13-week semester, maybe I have 3-week semester just focusing on this, and so everybody will have to do it. But then obviously I haven't really thought about the details. Like when that happens, you probably have to see the logistic, the resources, how it's going to be supported. If your course has actually got tutorial, and I think that will be a good way to start. If you don't have tutorials, that might be very difficult. If the whole, it depends on how big your class is. If we talk about postgraduate, if you have about 40 students or 25 students, that can still work. But undergraduate, over 100, that will be hard if it's one large class with the other side. But again, like we could as creative as possible. So but I think breaking up will be good, like using tutorial sessions.
Just want to make an observation comment.
Sure.
It's really great to hear this, when you describe it. This is a beginning process, and
Yes.
it does not replace face-to-face interaction.
No.
Because I think for to be really truly cross-cultural competent, you really have to have that face-to-face interaction.
Oh, no doubt,
And
no doubt.
and I think this provide a preliminary structure specifically because you're discipline specific. I mean, there's a sort of more global understanding what nursing is about, what basic core nursing practice should be, and you have that common ground to work on.
Yes.
It might be a bit more challenging in somewhat a different discipline. I mean, to do
Yes,
it.
no
yeah.
doubt.
Right.
Yeah.
So the other part, I want to make comment on the definition of internationalization at home. So I would say what the attempts we're doing is providing a beginning competency. I think it's not a panacea, and it needs to be
definitely.
described here. Intended to provide maybe a beginning competency, and I would say like Hong Kong is an international city. Majority of the students are traveling. The challenging with our university is that our students' body are more homogeneous, and maybe that is also has to do with our admission issue. And we have international students, we have local ethnic minority students from very diverse background, but they're not in the space.
Yeah.
Or the international students, we're not fully integrating. I mean, I know a lot of them want to go with the local students, but they're
fully engaging.
yeah, the
with each other.
engagement
Yeah,
process, that
that's right,
intercultural
that's right.
sharing is not taking place.
Yeah.
So I think that that internationalization is already there. I mean, when we
Definitely,
talked about
definitely.
it doesn't have to go overseas. Nothing replaced the face-to-face.
Yes.
So that's my second comment. And the third comment is that I think maybe we should also explore the notion of localization. Not just internationalization, to bring in the understanding of being the globe to the local.
Mm-hmm.
Because in Hong Kong, we do have an own local culture. And how do the challenges for many of our young people is that how is that we integrate what is there and what is here? Is not a breaking part. And I think this may end up being another breaking with the compartmentalization. I mean, the internationalization being an ex-British colony and an international city is already there. Our books are Western-based with Western philosophical underpinning.
Right.
The technical know-how are very international.
Right.
But I think that integration has to be done. Otherwise, it's another break for the students.
I agree totally. I think when the internationalization at home is being introduced, like my understanding is because of the fact that some of the students, they might not be able to have that kind of exposure like you described. Now, I live in the hall, like the student hall, so I know there's a lot of international students, especially with the university collaborating with a lot of partners now. And so we have a lot of exchange students coming over, but your point is well taken that the engagement and their encounter, the opportunity, I mean, they see each other, but that the engagement is not there. How do we actually promote that? Even, like we don't need to create too many of this thing, and then looking at what we have already. And I think I think there's a lot of work they're trying to do in the hall there, trying to see whether we could get them do something together and get to know each other and develop the sense of, I guess, understanding and further engagement. One thing I think is also the point that you mentioned, and I think is also very impressive to me, is depends on the particular profession discipline. Now, I make an assumption here, design or maybe hospitality. I think we have a lot of international students maybe sitting in a class and all that. Now, with School of Nursing, I mean, we have exchange students coming to do a semester, like if we can have it, the semester-long theoretical input. They come here for that exchange. Clinically, because of the patient, our patient population is all Cantonese or Chinese, and so there's not too many foreign students will be able to get into the hospital. Now we're trying to create a community experience for them, but even with that, it might not be as useful to them. I mean, they will be observer. We have buddies, like the buddy system. For them to understand what the patient is saying, But again, we don't. It's not as if you're looking at like the classroom level or even at a clinical level, we don't have as many foreign students like the other discipline. So definitely, I think again when I say contextually specific, you have to look at what seems to be more workable within your particular profession. And I also agree the fact that we have to be very careful. We don't want to break up the thing. Globalization is a big word. And internationalization is part of being a process of to be a global citizen and all that. So the idea is how we actually look at the synergy of what we're doing rather than thinking the panacea. Definitely there's no panacea for one thing. It's more like providing them with different options and opportunity. Like I said earlier, probably the ideal way is have a start of this. If they don't get to work with each other physically, start to work online, and then trying to hopefully bring them together at whatever level. They will go to there, or they come here, or they will meet somewhere, So I think that's very important.
Just an issue comment. The exchange for students, I mean, we have a lot of, seems to be able to get some money for exchange, and that's an important part because Hong Kong is not we are international, but we're not diverse.
Mm-hmm.
Many of the countries are diverse. So they come here, because the fact that we are English speaking, they be able to observe, say, when as a nurse, for example, what does it mean when you make it in terms of dealing with privacy, confidentiality? Because we are more family oriented, really. So the family makes some of the decisions, and this is what's safe. You work with an elder, this is what they want. Right. It's very different than Western concept, an individual sense of informed consent.
Yeah,
so those are the things they can learn just by observation.
Sure.
So that's one point. And the other point, what I was not talking about, I was talking globalization, the globe and the local. So that part of integration, I think many parts of the country, other countries are working on that as well. So bringing what's there and not integrating with the local cultures.
You mean integrating the local culture by having them come in here? Or
No.
Already existing?
When we talk internationalization, I introduced another comment. Despite the criticism of globalization in general, I'm talking globalization. They bring in the globe and the local. So having a global view, but integrated with the local practice.
Right.
It's more a postmodern term, but that's where I think many of the directions. So there's not a disconnect with what we're learning all these things and what
definitely.
What's
I think that integration is very important in the sense that what I've learned now, especially like now that I'm looking at more literature, the word, we're digressing a little bit, but here, looking at the word culture, this is a very sophisticated term, culture. I mean, what is culture? And like you said, very diverse. I mean, one thing is very, very prominent when I was working with the Finnish group. We have, like one person is a multiple cultural identities, if you could put it. Like, we're not talking about being a mother or father, that kind of identity. We're talking about ethnic identity, just one person. Born here, educated here, come here, and so the person have a lot of, like that. So again, like what kind of, so it's not, there's no such thing called pure culture, ethnically. So I think this is also something that we work with in terms of how they actually integrate. I think integrating the understanding of what they can learn from each other. And I think ultimately, we're talking about intercultural competence. It's looking at how we can open to each other's values, beliefs, and then take that on to compare to your own and see how you could better yourself as a global citizen.
It's the diversity within diversity.
Exactly. Right, you put, yeah. I know you guys are all having a lot of internationalizing project, and I mean, I'm actually would very much like to hear about yours as well, so that I can learn from you. Anything else? Yes.
Sure. I'm Valentina from CBS.
Hi.
Hi. So I have one of the project of internationalization that I am doing is with the industry.
Right.
So that is something that our faculties also want to do as well. So the students will be actually working with an international company based in New York and London.
Mm-hmm.
So they will collaborate with the industry people, and then they will fly over for 1 week, and then to execute certain local adaptation, or what the lady was saying, localization, because I teach culture and communication as well.
Right.
So how do you make something global, but also locally adapting to Chinese-speaking culture, for example? So the students.
The Chinese-speaking culture is in New York.
Yes, global as well. So global Chinese
Right.
and speaking country, cultural China concept. So it can be Chinese from Canada, it can be Chinese from Australia, Chinese from Malaysia, and mainland China, and mainland Chinese, of course. And then afterwards, they build a case studies, and also because at the time they creating a product which is a cultural adaptation, but also they are interacting with international practitioners.
Right.
So although those people will be like speaking 5 languages, Chinese, American Chinese, and so they can also learn from that as well. Then they create some videos and case studies and will incorporate into some of the subjects later on.
Sounds
So that was
fabulous,
one of the project that I was trying to do.
But I think just listen to that. I think you can see the complexity. So again, I guess we could only think of, to me it's more like a layer and a layer. So we may want to do the first layer, and then after you have gained some, and gain some experience and learn from that particular, project, with the first layer, you probably develop with more understanding. And so, and I think, I guess I couldn't wait to hear about your project so that, we could actually see, how we can unpack some of the layer and be able to think ahead. But at the same time, though, I think we need to be adventurous too, right? And I think the fact that we're going into a different culture, you need to be, like naive, and you need to be curious. And so if not, then you go in with all your, preconceived notion as to what I need to do and how I'm going to behave, and I think that kind of kills all the fun or your own growth and development. Thank you. Anything else?
Just one comment on the lady mentioned about, with the existing international community already on campus, what can we do as a teacher to help with that? I wouldn't say integration, because integration can entail we want everyone to be like together or the same, but there are a salad bowl theory or philosophy. Like on the plate of salad, everything is different, but together they are very tasty.
Right.
So what I have to do is in my class, during the first few weeks of the semester, I ask students to talk about something of, it can be an artifact, it can be something represent their own culture. So even for master class, you have a lot more Chinese, mainland Chinese students, but they could be from different part of province of China as well. So I asked them to think about one thing, represent their culture, and then share with their classmate at the beginning of the class. It only takes, the whole thing only takes 10 minutes. And then I will pick one or two to share it among the whole class. And then in the next lecture, so this is in the as tutorial, so week 1, 10 minutes. And then in the lecture, I will pick one or two to say something again. So just to, and then I use that as a deliberate gesture to say, you know, it's a diverse, very diversified classroom, and we should learn from each other. And this is, you know, the greatness, and just to help that to, and you know, ask the people that you don't know, you never been to that country, you know, ask them, you know, what is it like?
That's right. That's
So
right.
it just doesn't take too much time.
Yeah, exactly.
And it can bring into helping them to form groups for group projects.
Right.
And just, you know, opening a door for them. So it takes the first week 1 to week 3, I would say. And also use as a way, you know, in the lecture when people are not coming in on time. So 1 or 2 students sharing already, and then go into the real teaching.
So that's the teacher's wisdom, how to maximize
Yeah.
the time resources. I think.
Can I just clarify? When I meant integration, I'm talking about local students, integrating what they know internationally with the local culture. But when we talk about working with students or students relating with people who are different, I'm talking about meaningful engagement. That's a totally different concept.
Yes.
We're talking. I know you're getting into integration and simulation. I wasn't talking about that.
Yeah, I think again, there's a different level.
There's a different level, but it's also
engagement.
conceptually.
Yeah,
You know, it's not
yeah.
about integrating someone into our culture or
Certainly,
vice versa.
certainly, yeah.
It's about local students. They have to integrate what they know of into
Right.
their own local culture.
Yeah. And I wonder whether time is an issue too. Like, how long do they have each other, and what kind of opportunities being provided? What kind of exercise that we've designed, you know, to facilitate that kind of dialogue or that kind of deep engagement. So I think again, I'm talking about different layers, and so and what you wanted to achieve at the end. Yeah.
Students have a capacity. I think we always, if we create opportunities different ways, they pick it up
Yes,
different ways.
definitely.
I think it's the conceptual thinking about the staff, the faculty, and the university, because they can go and take a service learning, take other thing, and if they have that preliminary, let's say, some theoretical, you know, culture, philosophical underpinning, they go there and they start to see it, and they start to grab it, and they do their own integration.
Right, no doubt, yeah. That's right.
Thank you very much,
Okay,
Angela.
thank you,
I'm
thank
sure
you,
we have
thank you.
already started a very meaningful sort of community of practice conversation.